Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Wild. I'm a director at Food and Trees for Africa, and today I'm just going to take you through what the phases and needs are at this stage of the Inclusive Carbon Standard. Just for context, I know that there are a lot of professionals on this forum. However, there are also a lot of people that are not familiar with carbon and offsetting. So I am going to include fairly quickly as well, just a little bit of background about it before moving on to the Inclusive Carbon Program, and then just a slide at the end about compliance and return on investment models. So just to speak a little bit about carbon and offsetting. It's a really technical space, but it is something that we all need to know about. So what are carbon emissions? So the Earth basically has fossil fuels that have been stored in it over millions of years. Things like coal, natural gas, petroleum. But with our modern lifestyle, we have learned to burn these fossil fuels. And the burning of these fossil fuels create what's called greenhouse gas emissions, of which carbon dioxide is the primary greenhouse gas emitted through human activities. And basically what happens is the greenhouse gases, and I'm really sorry for the scientists here, the greenhouse gases form a layer around or in the atmosphere, and they absorb infrared radiation, and they trap and hold the heat there. And with a bit of an additional jump, it basically leads to global warming, which affects the stability of climate and global climate change. I think the cost of carbon cannot be underestimated. There is a massive cost to what we're doing to the planet, and things like political and social instability, environmental destruction. We have, you would have noticed that we're having increased storm damage around the world. There's all sorts of climate-related risks that we're seeing. And of course, our general way of life, things like growing food. Easily it becomes more difficult. Infectious diseases, although I don't want to specifically link it, some people did want to link deforestation and what we're doing to the planet to COVID. I don't really want to get into a debate about it, but there are health risks to climate change. And I think, for the business people in the room, they'll appreciate that the World Economic Forum named global climate change as the number one threat to the global economy. Although last year, and I did put a star there, COVID replaced that. But intrinsically over the past decade, it has very much been global climate change. So just to speak a little bit about challenges for business towards carbon neutrality, there can be a capital outlay, particularly if you're looking at energy investment. There is a degree of technical expertise that is required, often not in-house, but there are some really good experts in this country and around the world. The regulatory environment is often a bit of a challenge. I think having an appropriate strategy is often understated. And then the change management that comes with moving from whatever you're doing to carbon neutrality is we find is often a little understated. It can be a lot of resistance within organizations and companies. But just to point out something which is quite interesting, there is almost not been proved, but in a lot of academic literature, it shows that there is a positive correlation between sustainability in a broad sense and corporate financial performance. And I think that there's a lot of stuff that speaks to that, but basically if you have that ability, obviously you apply it in-house as well. What are carbon offsets? So carbon offsets, on the one side we produce emissions, and on the other side we try to reduce emissions. And you look at the things that produce it, things like flights, cars, paper, electricity, and on the other side we have renewables, we have planting trees, recycling, those kind of things that reduce your net carbon footprint. But just to speak about this little section here, These emissions can, and again, this is very loose to the professionals here, these emissions can be purchased from companies that generate surplus or focus on carbon projects. And this is kind of where we get the term carbon credits, because you can then purchase those carbon credits to offset your own carbon footprint. But just to mention that not all carbon credits are created equal. Some can be more valuable depending on how, where, and why the credits were generated. It could be depending on the country, or if there's a social component or something along those lines. So there are different values sometimes to carbon credits. Just a logical path to carbon neutrality. The first thing you have to do is obviously have a strategy and set some targets. Always start with energy and reducing the energy consumption and creating efficiencies within your supply chains. And then you try to offset the remaining annual carbon emissions or purchase carbon credits. And I think I speak for everyone here when I say to ensure integrity of your carbon neutrality, make sure you work with the right people, right? Work with accredited partners. It's really important. As I mentioned, we have some very good people in this space in this country. Yeah. So now that I rushed through that, I want to get onto the Inclusive Carbon Standard and where we are in the next steps. So let me start with the overall progress of where we are and where we're going in phases 2 and 3. So obviously phase 0, as we term it, is the initial proof of concept, and that's where we where the draft standard was written. We had some base methodologies that were written. There's a project as well that's going on. And there was actually a bit of software development and coding in the background, although there was a lot of trial and error there. And there was obviously an internal and external, closed external review process that we went through. That's completed. We were very happy with the results of the initial proof of concept, and it is clear to us that this is something that is worth pursuing. So we moved on to phase 1, and this is where we looked to refine what we had, continue to build on it, and engage with people. You will know, we had the first stakeholder meeting as well, and from that we continued. It was kind of iterative to engage and build and refine, build and refine. And from this we have got a version 1 of the standard for public comment, which should be out either today or later this week. And we have additional methodologies as well. And of course, as you've seen, we have the version 1 of the platform build, which is still in kind of testing phase. I think there's still going to be a lot of work there, but as you guys would know, with software development, these things also are quite iterative, and you have different versions, but we're quite pleased with where we are in terms of the platform build. And then lastly, there's the initiation of the structures, which Robbie has spoken to, but just to mention again that this is really important for the governance, and we want to get this process going. So this is where we started the initiation process for the structures within that are around the standard. So this is where we move into phase 2, and this is what we are now considering the current phase. So this is where we want to obviously develop a lot of additional methodologies, component methodologies. We obviously want strategic partners that we want to work with, and there's going to be a lot of testing that goes in there as well. And of course, this needs to culminate in a submission to the Department of Energy in line with the framework that is still yet to be released. So obviously we haven't seen it, we don't know what it looks like, but we have a fair idea that we're on the right track, and obviously there may be modifications, hopefully not too many, but obviously out of this phase we would like to submit the standard to the Department of Energy. So just in terms of the types of support we're looking for, obviously we're looking for funding. We are a non-profit, but even if we were a for-profit, we would be looking for funding to kind of continue this initiative, this program. So I'm not going to talk too much about that at the moment. I would like to talk about expertise, because one of the things we could really use right now is the support and expertise of professionals in the space. There are some really good people in this space, technically minded and ethically minded as well, and we could really use the help of professionals in the space who can help us with a variety of things linked to the project. This is also where we're tightening up on things like policy documents and additional methodologies, and we could use input not just on those things themselves, but potentially on the process as well. And then the other thing we're really hoping to get out of this meeting as well, we're hoping to people to sign up for it is collaboration partners. And why this is slightly different is we're looking for people that have existing methodologies, who are prepared to kind of load the methodologies onto the system, so we can try and see exactly if there are any bugs or what the process is like, and get feedback there. And I think that might work interestingly from both sides, but we're looking for partners to be able to do that and basically be beta testers on the platform. Just in terms of support priorities, obviously methodologies I've mentioned. I've said 50 there. I think we actually are looking for 55 component methodologies to start. Obviously, there's the continuous custom development of the platform. The governance is something that we really want to be strong on and tighten up now. And there's quite a lot of work there, but maybe not as much as the methodologies and the platform, obviously. And then there's engagement, and I've included the submission to government in this as well, which we need to kind of work on. Just to speak about the component methodologies focus for anyone that's interested. Obviously right now in the space there is a lot of talk about energy generation, so this is it's no surprise that we're kind of focusing on this element. So photovoltaic, concentrated solar, landfill gas, we're going to be looking for component methodologies here. I have to include forestry and rehabilitation, not just from my food and trees side, but also because the more literature you read on the subject, you realize that forestry is going to be a huge component in combating global climate change. So that's obviously on the agenda as well. And then we've had some input from smaller projects which we find really interesting, and we want to include this as well. Things like cooking stoves, biochar, composting, vermiculture, which is earthworms, for those who don't know. So these smaller projects are, well, when I say smaller, I'm talking in terms of value compared to like a photovoltaic energy install. So just to move on again, so I'm trying to get through this also fairly quickly. When we talk about needing component methodologies, what we've done is we have looked in the background and outlined within each of these what would be a very good start for the standard to have linked to it. So remember, these methodologies are open sourced, and so just looking at so just to speak about the PV component methodology base that we're looking at, we've got 15 methodologies that we've outlined there, or component methodologies that we've outlined, and we think this will be a very good start for the PV side of the standard. But obviously we're anticipating in the future way more than this, but this will be a good start. Just in terms of the platform, I've mentioned it, and just to reiterate, anyone who's done custom development will know it is not an easy task. The point is that we are developing this in line with the principles. There are also security requirements, And remember that one of the things that we want to ensure through this entire process is the integrity of the credits. And the only way you can really do that is control the back-end software as well. So this is something that is ongoing. Just to mention, there's a cost estimate just now, but just to mention that we are measuring this in sprints per industry standard. So this is the cost estimate we've got for this phase. The reason I'm showing this, or we're showing this to everyone, is because we are looking for funding. We are looking for the help. And if you can take it back to people you know, or mention it in the space, over coffee or conversations, we're looking to develop 55 component methodologies across those elements that I showed you just now. We think that there will be 12 sprints that are required to take the platform to the next level, and that's including testing and all of that kind of stuff as well. That governance component I mentioned, we're looking for probably about 500,000 or 550 upward there, because there are a lot of kind of structures, and we really want to make sure that this is done right. We want the integrity of this entire standard and the system and everything. It needs to be 100%. And then, of course, there's going to be the engagement and submission to DOE. We don't yet know exactly what that looks like. We have a fair idea, but again, I think there's going to be a bit of work that's involved there. Keep in mind that this project is still sitting with Food and Trees for Africa at the moment. We are a registered public benefit organization. Obviously, the intention is to transfer the rights of the assets that are accrued in this time over to the structures that are put in place. But at the moment, you do get an 18A tax receipt and kind of all of those benefits along with it. And then just to speak lastly about the types of budgets you can use in this phase. So we have obviously carbon sustainability budgets. A lot of you will know that there is a huge amount going on at the moment. And I mean, we're talking projects to the value of hundreds of millions. To throw in a couple 100,000 for a carbon methodology which may improve your return on investment, I don't think is a huge ask. Of course, there's the enterprise supply development component as well, but this will be more to support maybe not energy-based projects. I don't think it has too much of a place there, but potentially the smaller projects and the land-based projects, there is definitely room for business opportunities in and around this to develop carbon credits for companies. If you want to know how it works, please contact us. And then, of course, innovation and technology funds, it goes without saying. I mean, we're developing platforms. You've seen the stuff, radar, LiDAR, drones, that kind of thing. It suits the profile. And then, of course, always come back to CSI and SED, which would obviously be a donation to Food and Trees, which we would utilize towards this cause. So thank you very much.